Brandon, how's it going, buddy?
Good, Bobby. How are you, man?
Good. I've been saving you because I wanted to get you back on, but I wanted to make sure it was a big weekend because I think of all the analysts that we talk to, especially college football, like you're my favorite. And so don't blow it, Brandon, okay? Because I'm counting on you here. You're the guy. We've been waiting. I've been waiting for I've been like, Mike, we got to get Brandon at the right time. And I think now is the right time. I'm going to start with my interests first. I believe that South Carolina can put a little scare into Tennessee. Do you believe that?
No.
Ah, crap.
Sorry. No, I don't see it. South Carolina, their offensive line is pretty dreadful. They laid an egg on the road against Florida last week. I think they're reeling a little bit. I think South Carolina is going to be making some staff changes with the assistant coaches here in this offseason, and Tennessee's just going to jump on them. And Spencer Rattler for South Carolina, he's going to have to throw the ball a lot to get back in that game. And when Rattler has to throw the ball a lot, he makes mistakes. He makes lots of mistakes when he's trailing, and I think Tennessee's going to roll in that one.
I know I'm not saying South Carolina is a team that was going to win 9 or 10 games, but I think they're a team that every once in a while, because again, Beamer's taking a program, and I don't think it's a disappointment this year compared to how that program over the last 2 years has actually trended up. I think South Carolina's in a pretty decent place to continue to grow. I think that's a little school that can scare somebody occasionally. And I just really wanted to beat Tennessee. That's what it is. I just really wanted to beat Tennessee, Brandon. That's what it is. Yeah.
You're an SEC hater. You don't want the SEC in the playoff, do you? You don't want 2 teams in there.
I want 3 teams in there. I want if I get to pick it, I want 3 teams in there, but I would still, if Tennessee beats South Carolina, I hope Tennessee, LSU, and Georgia get in. But I live in Tennessee, and I can't take it. I can't take Tennessee fans. When I lived in Austin, I couldn't take Texas fans. I'm an Arkansas fan, first and foremost, but I can't take the Volunteers. If they win it all, I might just, I don't know, move to Europe.
You better get used to it because I think Tennessee's here to stay for a few years. Their recruiting's been killer here lately. And, man, goodness, they don't have a defense right now. Just wait till they get a defense in place here the next couple of years.
Hey, Mike, you want to say about Brandon? Cancel that. We don't need it anymore. Yeah, we don't. We're good. Let's move on. Let's move west, and just a few of these games that are happening this week that I think are very interesting. Again, implications when it comes to the playoff. USC and UCLA. Your thoughts on that game and if USC can be the team that comes from out west?
I've been not as high on USC this year as a lot of people. In fact, it was befuddled my mind how UCLA was below USC in their rankings for the last 3 weeks up until this past week. And so I think UCLA has not only got a chance in this, but I'm picking UCLA straight up to win it because I think UCLA is better in the trenches against USC. They're very physical up front. UCLA's got more experience. They got a veteran quarterback. DTR might not be the Patrick Mahomes light that Caleb Williams has turned into at USC, but he's a veteran guy. They can run the ball. They can win a number of different ways. I like that veteran leadership, and I think UCLA is going to, quote-unquote, upset USC this week and further disrupt the Pac-12's ability to get in the playoff this year.
Let's just say USC does win, right? Let's throw that out there. Can they be one of the 4 teams?
Yes, I think it is extremely possible that they would get in at that point. But I do think that style points are going to matter. And secondly, the schedule is actually kind of working out for USC here lately because USC hasn't really played anybody in the top 25 other than one team as of right now. But they end the season potentially against 3 straight top 25 teams, starting this week against UCLA. They've got Notre Dame, which is all of a sudden a top 25 team once again. And then, of course, in the Pac-12 championship game, they'll play a top 25 team. And that'll stick out to the playoff committee. The playoff committee takes into consideration, one, they love conference champions. That is one of their top things they look at. If you're a conference champion, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt more times than not. And then secondly, if you finish the season on a roll like that against top 25 teams and you win and you do so impressively, I think it's probably going to be pretty difficult for them to keep USC out of the playoff field.
Well, Utah has something to say about that. Oregon did have something to say about it until last week, until they lost. But Utah and Oregon are playing each other. So, I mean, any chance Utah climbs into the playoff?
No, Utah's out. Utah's out, but they continue to kind of upset things, and they're playing the spoiler right now, much like LSU is a little bit. Utah is kind of like an LSU spot, except LSU's got a legitimate shot to make the playoff. Utah, I don't think does at all. But how does Oregon respond after losing the way they did against Washington last week? That had been a little disheartening. They had one of the longest home winning streaks in all of college football this season, and to lose the way they did, Bo Nix not able to lead them to victory in the final minute. How do they respond? This is the first time they've really had a setback. I mean, listen, they lost in week 1 against Georgia, but it was a blowout. And so that's a little bit easier to get over than, say, a close loss at home, especially when you're in the playoff hunt. But I really like Utah at this point. Cam Rising is an amazing quarterback, does not get enough credit for what he does, especially when he's able to create and run the ball. But I think Oregon's going to win this one at home, and I would not be surprised if it's actually a double-digit win for Oregon just because of the personnel matchups I look at with Utah defense going up against this Oregon passing attack with Bo Nix, and I think the Ducks end up winning this one pretty comfortably, honestly.
I've made a parallel between the Minnesota Vikings and TCU where they just win, and you don't really expect them to win, but they keep on winning, so you have to respect them, and the games aren't always pretty. But again, they are winning, and so if TCU wins the Big 12, obviously they're in, but are they one of the top 4, 5, or 6 teams? In my opinion, probably not. But again, it's a Power 5 school. Same with Minnesota. TCU and Baylor. I mean, does TCU get upset in the next couple weeks? The Big 12 championship. What are your thoughts on the program there as it goes into the playoff?
This game is a coin flip to me. I think it might actually end up being the week that TCU finally does fall. We've seen them have these comeback victories, 4 of them in the second half when trailing by double digits. Baylor just got blown out at home by Kansas State, and so people, I think, are overlooking them a little bit. But I'll say this. I think 2 of the better coaching staffs in all the Big 12 are at TCU and Baylor. TCU has done a great job of in-game adjustments this season, which has led to those big-time comebacks in the second half. Their defense, led by their coordinator there, who came from Tulsa, is really using some type of unique schemes, and nothing really looks the same week to week or even half to half in these games, and it's completely confusing opponents. Baylor, though, has an amazing staff led by Jeff Grimes, the offensive coordinator there. Really love what he's doing. He's going to be a Power 5 head coach here soon. This is going to be an amazing matching of wits and in-game adjustments, and I think Baylor upsets TCU this week and throws the playoff into a little bit more of a tizzy here, and the Big 12 is going to end up being potentially left out of the fold.
I mean, it could be full tiz. I like that. It could be full tiz depending on Ohio State, Michigan they play. If LSU happens, and I don't think they will, but let's just play the game here. LSU, let's say they win. Let's say USC loses another game. Who the heck is getting in the play? This is the first time where there have been like a lot of teams where you're going, man, there really are some options here in the final 4 teams that I haven't thought about. What do you think's going to happen here?
There's a lot of different scenarios, and more so than I've seen here in recent years. But I kind of feel that things are just going to work out, and we're not going to see much movement up there. I think TCU is probably going to find a way, and if not, I think that'll just make things a little bit easier for the Pac-12 to get in there. And then it's just kind of a question of, one, can LSU upset Georgia in the SEC championship game to throw things even crazier? Then you've got Tennessee, which is just sitting pretty in my eyes. They've got South Carolina and Vanderbilt left on the schedule. All they got to really worry about is, to see if this, TCU remains undefeated at this point. And they've got to feel pretty good about their spot, about potentially getting in as a 4 seed. But there are options there where if things get really crazy, we might end up seeing 3 SEC teams in there.
Man, that would be like Christmas, early Christmas.
It would take quite a bit of movement. You would need a 2-loss champion in the Pac-12, because that team would be eliminated, not be in, and that team would have to probably be Utah at that point. And then you need a one-loss Big 12 champion, which would maybe be a TCU or someone else. But TCU needs to lose here in the regular season, obviously. If that happens, I think because of the game, of it being the last regular season game, I say the game, Michigan and Ohio State, that the loser of that could be on the outside looking in, and then that throws in Tennessee in there, and then you've got LSU as the SEC champion against Georgia. I don't know how you keep them out because even though they got 2 losses, you've beaten the inarguable number 1 team in the country in Georgia, and then Georgia wouldn't fall all that far themselves, and you'd have to put them in as well. So you could see Georgia, Tennessee, and LSU as an SEC champion in the playoff fold, and boy, would that upset most of the country.
If Michigan and Ohio State play close and play strong, I don't know, any chance they both just stay up there?
It's possible, but unlikely in my eyes at this point because of everything else that's going on around them. I do wonder, though, if the game was played in the middle of the season instead of the end of the season, if that recency bias wouldn't necessarily be in there, and then at the end of the year we would say, yeah, those are the two of the top 4 teams. I think they might end up being the loser of that game, might end up being a victim of circumstance and scheduling, which is a shame to say. And once again, it shows us that we need to go to a 12-team playoff sooner than later.
Yeah, by 12, I mean 64. Let's do it all. Let's just go full November, December madness, 64. Come. Oh, that would be awesome. Jimbo Fisher. Let's go, Brandon. Come on, Jimbo Fisher. What's happening?
He's not going to get fired this year. I just don't see that happening. I know everybody's like, well, Texas A&M's got that oil money. They just get some cash out of that cowboy boot and pay him off. Not going to happen. Not this year. And there's a few reasons why. One, they'd have to pay over $100 million to not only Fisher, but of course his staff and buyout money. But I think more than the money issue, which is substantial and probably insurmountable for them to overcome. But you have invested in Jimbo Fisher's ideas and his plan, and he's been building this program through top 4 recruiting classes. They just brought in the top recruiting class ever in college football history, according to the 24/7 Sports recruiting rankings. And then also, if you look at their snap counts this year, they're the only SEC team that has had at least one freshman on the field at every moment. So 100% of their snaps, a true freshman has been out there on the field. They are by far the most inexperienced and youngest team in the SEC. And all those guys, of course, highly rated, but it isn't like you could just throw these kids in the microwave, pop them in, 30 seconds later they come out and they're steaming hot. It's just doesn't how it works in college football, even if you're a 5-star guy. You got to come in, and some of these players, especially linemen, which A&M's had to lean on, they need about a year in that program and strength and conditioning to properly develop. So you got to give Fisher at least another year with all these recruiting classes he's had, and of course this number 1 core that has played a lot of snaps this past season, but obviously still very young. I think this would be a much different conversation, say it's in November of 2023. If they got a losing record at that point, Jimbo Fisher's bags are probably already packed.
Isn't it his fault, though? There's a freshman playing every down. He's had plenty of time to develop the talent there. It's not like he's a new coach in his 2nd year, and I completely understand. But isn't that kind of his fault that those snap counts are filled with freshmen?
Yeah, that, and also you got to use the transfer portal a little bit better if you're him to be able to fill in immediate needs if you need to do so. But then again, maybe this is something he's communicated to his bosses there of like, hey, listen, I've identified as 2022 or 2021 as a year we might see a little dip here because we're preparing for something in 23 and 24 to contend for a national championship with the way we're going after these high school recruits. But again, I'm with you there. That is his fault. And even if you see this coming, there are ways to counteract that, counterbalance all that through the transfer portal. And we're seeing it now. I mean, goodness gracious, look at Lane Kiffin at Ole Miss. USC, Lincoln Riley his first year. You're able to restock and fill these voids in the matter of a snap of a finger or a phone call going, hey, come here and play. by the way, a NIL deal might be coming your way as well, I hear. And then they get on campus and everything's fixed. Jimbo has not done a very good job with that.
Two quick things to end this with. Lane, Auburn, those have been kind of mixed. They've been mixing that soup up a little bit. One, Lane loves to flirt. So just because I see it, I definitely don't believe it's true just because I see it. And would that even be a great job to take? Because Auburn, if they don't beat Alabama, and Lane and Saban, do you think there's any chance Lane could go to Auburn? And who do you think's right for that Auburn job? What are you hearing?
There's a very real chance that he takes that job. Lane Kiffin to Auburn makes a lot of sense, and also Auburn's betting on that. They're going after him. It wasn't 20 minutes after Brian Harsin was fired at Auburn that I was reporting that Lane Kiffin is the number one target, because I know people around the new athletics director there, John Cohen, and I'm familiar with the Auburn folks there. And Kiffin is their top priority right now. And you're going to hear something in these next 2 weeks of whether or not he's going to take that job. And I think that the conversations will be serious when they're actually able to sit down and discuss that. Will Lane take it? Is he in a different headspace right now than he was, say, 3, 4, 5, and even obviously 10 years ago when everybody was making fun of him for always bouncing around from job to job? Yeah, I think he's in a different headspace. He's more mature. But secondly, he needs to look at himself in the mirror and go, okay, so even publicly he has said and complained about Ole Miss this past year and saying, why aren't people showing up to games at 11 a.m. here at Ole Miss when we got a top 15 team? He's calling out the fan base earlier this season. He has complained about losing his defensive coordinator, DJ Durkin, to Texas A&M because they got outbid and they didn't have enough money to keep him there, even though they wanted to keep him there at Ole Miss. And he's also complained about NIL money around Ole Miss and not having deep enough reserves to be able to compete against the likes of Texas A&M or Tennessee. At Auburn, none of that is going to be an issue. Their NIL reserves are incredibly huge, and they're building even further. They just opened up a $92 million football facility here within the last week. And you're at a program, by the way, where you never have to worry about the fan base not showing up. Heck, they packed the stadium for a game between two losing programs this past week, and the environment, I was told, after the game with the student section was comparable to the Iron Bowl. So you add all that up, and the tradition at Auburn where we like to make fun of Auburn, say it's Auburn being Auburn, them having some bad years, them firing coaches and giving them big buyouts or whatever. But the other truth is that Auburn competes for SEC championships about once every 3 or 4 years. They've been to multiple national championship games, and they have won 2 national championships, including, of course, back in 2010. So, can you do that at Ole Miss? History says no, you can't. And with all those limitations that Lane Kiffin has talked about publicly, there's no telling what else Lane Kiffin might think privately. So, yes, I think there is a very real chance and shot for Auburn to land Lane Kiffin on the plane.
I love it. I just love drama. I love a story. I love it. Let's go. I love Lane.
Oh, imagine that. Hey, imagine the Iron Bowl with Lane and Nick going at each other, and not just year to year, but day to day, because in that state, it's day to day, and they're going to be at each other's throats.
That'd be perfect. At Brandon Marcello on Instagram. Hey, Brandon, I follow you, and I was looking at some pictures you posted on Twitter, and you had a pair of pants, really big pants that you were holding up. And so those were your pants, right?
No, it's some clown. I found a clown. Yeah. Some big clown pants. It's like, these are fun.
We talk about that. Those were your pants, and you were showing, I guess, how much weight you lost, right? How healthy you are now.
Yeah.
What is that journey for you?
It's been insane. I've lost between 140, 150 pounds. I've gained some back from strength training. I'm trying to get buff now, but it was about a 1.5 year journey. Just simply walking and jogging, and of course watching what I eat and dieting. And now it's a lifestyle change for me, and I'm keeping that up, and it's been great. And I was going through my closet. I was trying to get the guts to go through my closet and clean out my suits, because I'm one of those people who are like, I am not getting rid of a suit because, one, I'm just going to get bigger and I don't want to lose it. But two, I can't afford to go buy more suits, so I'm afraid. I finally got the guts. I said, you know what? I've made this change. I'm sticking with it. I need to get rid of these suits. So I went in there, started getting them out, and I found one suit. It was the last one I had bought before I lost this weight, and it was the jacket size was a 56 regular, and I'm wearing now a 40. So I've lost 16 suit sizes,
Wow.
and I just about broke down because I didn't realize how big I was, even though I lived in this body. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna put this on and see what it's like. And I couldn't believe it. I put my arms down in the pants along with my body, and my wife took pictures. Said you should be so proud of yourself. And I was very down on myself that day too. And I was like, you know what? It's amazing how far I've come, and you don't realize it when you're living it day to day. But when you're able to use something that is that far in your past, it's jarring to see that, and to see that picture. I've saved that picture now, and so if I'm ever feeling down about myself, I'll look at that and go, anything's possible. Because if I did that, then I can do anything.
Man, so inspirational, dude. I'm super pumped for you. I mean, it's just an inch at a time, because that is not something that happens overnight.
And anybody can do it, man. And if I hate when people say that, like, if I could do it, you could, like, legitimately, like, knowing me and how my brain works, if I can do it, man, anybody can do it. And you're exactly right. It's like a day at a time, an inch at a time. It's about consistency. If you legitimately just do something one day and then say, my body hurts, I don't want to do the next, do it the next day. I'm telling you, after about a week and a half, 2 weeks of that, it really is kind of a piece of cake.
My main guy, Mike, who's our producer, like you, started walking. He lost 110 pounds, and he started.
That's awesome.
He started walking and cutting soda, and then he walked until he got to where he could jog a little bit. And he preaches, I didn't start running a marathon after day 2. Like, I walked a little bit more each day, a little bit more. Dude, I'm really proud for you, Brandon. That is like real inspiration. I know we talk about sports, and it's fun, and I love sports, as do you. You made a career out of it. But it's somewhat trivial in the grand scheme. But yeah, I think what you just shared, like, that's the real deal. And I'm glad that you're able to share that and just to live it and inspire others to do the same.
Yeah, here's the thing. Minutes a day to add decades to your life. That's how I see it.
And I keep eating those little Debbie cakes.
You and Nick Saban.
Oh, I know. Okay, there he is. Brandon Marcello. We got a whole master class here in football, and I'm inspired. And today for lunch, grilled chicken.
Yeah.
All right, at Brandon Marcello. Brandon, thank you. Awesome. You're the best, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Thank you, Bobby.
All right, see you,
Appreciate
Brandon.
it, man.